Okay, let's call the meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Present.
Mr. Bowersox?
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth? Present. Mr. Lewis?
Present.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Smythe?
Here.
Ms. Stevenson?
Present.
Mayor Pressing?
Here. Is there a motion to move the discussion of the special use permit to the...
So moved. Yeah, I would like to move that to right after public input.
Okay. Right now, we'll open it up for public input. Is there anyone who would like to address the council? First of all, I have a group of people who want to talk about the Smoke-Free Alliance, and then there are people who want to talk about other items. Is anyone here who'd like to talk for the Smoke-Free Alliance? Could you all get together and maybe have one person speak for you? Or do you all want to speak? Okay. Please state your name and your address.
My name is Sherry Manrique. My name is Sherry Manrique. I live at 308 Thompson Street in Urbana. I have two quick issues. I am a musician and I have asthma. Smoke is the main trigger of my asthma attacks, so I can't go any place that allows smoking. My family met at Cracker Barrel a few years ago for Thanksgiving, and I couldn't go because of the smoking. And also the Canopy Club is a great place to hear local musicians as well as big rock bands from all over the country. I would have liked to have seen Baruch Assault tonight, but I can't go. I bought their CDs, I like their music, but the smoking just keeps me away. Also, it is wonderful that some restaurants in Urbana, like Ned Kelly's and Silver Creek, have gone smoke-free on their own. I really hope that Urbana can pass an ordinance so that all bars and restaurants can go smoke-free at the same time. Then people like me who are now staying home will be able to go out to eat with their family or hear a good band and start spending more money to help Urbana's economy. And I had one other issue I'd like to bring up. I would like to mention an issue I have with Bradley Avenue between Carver and Lincoln. Let's see. Driving east from Parkland, Bradley Avenue is striped to allow 4 lanes of traffic. Then, right at the sign for the Urbana city limits, after Carver, the dotted lines end and traffic is supposed to merge into 2 lanes. The problem with this is that the rest of the road stays the same width until it crosses Lincoln Avenue. Many people continue to drive as if it remains 4 lanes the entire way. This is very dangerous. It is also, I just wondered if it was possible to stripe the rest of Bradley Avenue so that it will stay 4 lanes. Also, after Bradley Avenue crosses Lincoln Avenue, it immediately merges down to 2 lanes, and I was wondering if it would be possible to paint the right lane as a right turn only so that the 2 lanes of traffic are not trying to merge so quickly after the light. Thank you. And you can have these pictures if you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Good evening. My name is Matt Varble. I live at 1708 Nancy Beth Drive in Champaign, and I'm appearing before you this evening as the Director of Communications for the Smoke-Free Alliance. And we're here this evening to formally ask the Urbana City Council to begin consideration of a smoke-free ordinance. At this time, you all should have been provided a comprehensive petition containing signatures from residents of Urbana, Champaign, visitors, commuters, and tourists to our cities in support of the issue of clean indoor air. As you've read by now, our mission is to have the cities of Champaign and Urbana adopt a smoke-free ordinance. Recently, you may have also been starting to receive postcards from constituents within each of your respective districts on this issue. At the present time, this issue has reached a standstill in the city of Champaign. At this time, we've decided to come to Urbana to ask the city to demonstrate some leadership on this issue and to work with us to build a consensus and work with us as a strategic partner on this issue. And also, I'd like to set the record straight directly to the council here to address some misconceptions that may have been out there from people that you've heard from other than us. We're not an all-or-nothing organization. We're about building consensus on this issue. We have been nothing less than professional and courteous with respect to the public interaction on this issue and intend to remain that way. And we also want to say that there is demonstrable community support behind this issue. A recent public opinion poll that we had commissioned in November of 2004 showed approximately 75% of the registered voting public in the cities of Champaign and Urbana do support this issue. So at this time, I just wanted to ask for this issue to be taken into consideration and to please do not hesitate to contact us in the future as this issue progresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Catherine Anthony, and I live at 309 West Pennsylvania Avenue in Urbana. And I would like to just follow up briefly, because I know time is limited, your agenda is packed. I've lived in Urbana for 21 years, and I know a few of you, and I think I've talked to a few of you about this issue over the years. I'd just like to say that I am a very strong supporter of a smoke-free Champaign and Urbana. I would like to feel that I live in a place that I can be proud of, where our civic leaders are looking ahead towards the future, unlike some of our neighbors in Champaign. We've had a hard time with this issue over there. I don't know how many of you know the history. We've had a very hard time. And I really, really hope that we can make some progress here in Urbana on this. It's long overdue. I just want to add briefly to what my colleague Matt just said. Counterparts of you in 9 countries, 8 states, and hundreds of cities across the United States have already enacted successful smoke-free laws. They've not gone out of business. People still come, eat, drink, have a good time, and enjoy being there. And any of you, and I'm guessing many of you, have actually visited smoke-free cities and states and can vouch what a pleasure it is to be able to go in any place you want and breathe clean air. I think we can do it here. I hope that you agree. Thank you.
Quick question.
Thank you.
Do we have a copy of the ordinance that Champaign was looking at?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We'll be happy to provide it with you at the end of the meeting.
Is there anyone else who'd like to talk? Please state your name and address.
My name is Marilee Crutcher, and I live at 706 West Washington in Urbana, and I've lived there for 30 years. This is the first time in 30 years that I've addressed the council, and it's because I feel very strongly about this issue. I'm very lucky when I visit my husband's family in Lexington, Kentucky, because that is a town that is smoke-free. There it is in the lap of tobacco country, and you can go anywhere you want there and go to bars, go to restaurants, go to jazz clubs, and enjoy yourself in a smoke-free atmosphere. In addition, I go to California all the time to visit the rest of my family, and of course you can go anywhere you want in California and not have to ask, is your smoke-free section right next to your smoking section? I've traveled a great deal with my 3 children. 2 are asthmatic and allergic, and many places are just out of the question for them to visit because of this, because the smoking that goes on within the same establishment where the non-smoking area is. Now my youngest is 21, and she tells me she's finally old enough to go to the clubs and the bars and hear the jazz and the music she likes, but she can't go because she can't put up with the smoke. As long ago as 1988, the Surgeon General's office reported that secondhand smoke increases the likelihood of miscarriage, and I don't think it's fair that women should have to avoid establishments like that allow smoke anytime they are pregnant. In addition, secondhand smoke has been linked to cervical cancer in a study published in the Journal of American Medical Association, so I guess it's really never safe for women to breathe smoky air. I have the impression both Champaign and Urbana councils fear that bars and restaurants becoming smoke-free will cost them some of their business. I watched with great interest when Alan Strong decided to make the Courier Cafe completely smoke-free, and I've talked to various employees there, and they all assure me that their business has increased after that. In conclusion, I would just like to state that the American Heart Association said as far back as '92 that passive smoking kills 53,000 Americans every year. And I think it's simply unacceptable that a resident of Urbana-Champaign cannot go out to enjoy themselves without risking exposure to this life-threatening situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kathleen Gary. I live in Champaign and I work in Urbana. I'm at 3106 Sylvan Drive in Champaign. I just wanted to conclude by letting you know that all of you should have received your binders with tons of information from the Champaign-Urbana Smoke-Free Alliance, and I just want it on the record that there are nearly 4,000 signatures that we have given you in terms of a petition for this issue. So I hope you do take this seriously, and please, we would like to work with you on this. So if you have questions or if we can make a formal presentation at another time, we'd be happy to do it to explain the scientific public opinion poll and the restaurant and bar survey that was conducted. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, is Jennifer Ivory Tatum available? I have a card filled out for her.
It's for the special use.
Right. This is the public participation, and then we're going to go into that discussion. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Ivory Tatum, and I reside at 2210 South Cottage Grove Avenue in Urbana, Illinois. I am actually here in reference to the special license for liquor sales at 907 West Fairview Avenue. I am the principal at King Elementary School, which is 2 blocks from 907 West Fairview. I'm here representing our school just to tell you a few of our concerns. We do have a petition that someone else will be presenting to the council later this evening that several of our staff members did sign in opposition to this special use permit as well. One of our major concerns as a staff is the fact that the convenience store, grocery store will be open at 7 a.m., which many of our students do begin to walk to school, crossing the crossway right there at Lincoln Avenue anytime after 7:30. We're concerned about the increased traffic, the possibility for further accidents at this corner, for people who may be under the influence coming in and out. Students walk home, especially when weather is nice, and it has been beautiful out, so our students do walk in big groups down that street and crossing that crossway, and we are concerned about the increase in the traffic and people who may be purchasing alcohol or under the influence as they enter and leave this parking lot. The park area, our school and our students, we have been enjoying our park area. The Urbana Park District has built a new playground for us, and we are enjoying it immensely. We are concerned, though, however, that the increase of cans and bottles and other paraphernalia and things like that may appear in the park. We do routinely have to clean up in front of our building and just surrounding areas, those kinds of items, and we are concerned that will increase with the sale of alcohol so readily available in walking distance to our school. Vandalism has been an issue at our building as well. It's been an issue at King School for many years, and we're also concerned that with this increase, with more people hanging out in the park, just hanging out and enjoying their alcohol as they're sitting in our backyard behind our school. We have students who, our students walk, but the middle school and high school students are dropped off by MTD buses right in front of this establishment. And what a temptation to a high school student to get off of the bus after a long day of school and have a liquor store sitting right there in front of you. We don't want to tempt our students in that way. The King Park neighborhood is a fragile community, as you already know. The residents are working with the school to keep our students safe, and we really believe that the sale of alcohol would not encourage that, and it would be a hindrance to our students being remaining safe in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Mary L. Brooks.
Good evening. I live at 1210, I almost said 1412 West Dublin, 1210 West Beslin. I've lived in the area for 43 years, moving from Dublin to Beslin. And I haven't been out of that area since I moved to Urbana, Champaign. I raised 9 children in that area. I'm asking that you not approve the special permit for the sale of liquor at 907 West Fairview Avenue as a part of a grocery store. We do not need it in our community. Our community has enough problems. We, as it has been stated, already is fragile and we have many problems. We have people who is transit coming through because Fairview connects with Beslin, which connects with Washington Street, which connects with Times Center, and we often have many of their clients who walks down that area and is in the community. And many of them use alcohol. And when we talk about alcohol, alcohol is a drug, and we know that it's a drug. And we may as well call it exactly what it is. It's a drug. Our children live in the community, and we have children who are going to school in the community. Our children do not need to be exposed to any more negativism than they already have had in the past. We are trying to build our community. We have new homes going up, and as a senior citizen, we're planning to retire and continue to live in the neighborhood. We're planning to upgrade our community. And right now, we're quite happy trying to build and revitalize. It takes the community to help the city council and the city to revitalize. We have to do it together. And when we're not happy, therefore, we're not going to be happy taxpayers. And I didn't realize that they had upgrading the tax on the agenda tonight. Otherwise, I've been talking about that too. Our children are our most important assets, and we have lost a generation of children with drugs and alcohol. We have lost them in our community. We have lost them in the school district. I worked for the school district for 30 years. I see all kinds of things. I am a community outreach worker. I work within the community. So I know what is going on in the community. We don't need cigarettes. We don't need alcohol. We don't need left-hand cigarettes, if you know what I'm talking about. We are fighting a war on drugs. And the United States have lost the war, and Champaign County has lost the war. If we continually not to fight it, we have to call it out for what it is, and we must continually to work on it. That's about all I have to say, except for, as a senior citizen, I walk in my community. I try to do about 10 miles a day. We have, because we have a group that walks, there have been people who have jumped out of the bushes on us, you know, up there on Lincoln where you got all those trees. We're the tree city of the United States, and we don't trim the trees and the bushes, and people are jumping out We had this man, one man, to jump out on us this summer, you know, and when we looked down, he was not a runner because for the mere fact he did not have running shoes on. And he found out that we wasn't the easy touch that he thought we were. And we do not plan on laying down and dying. We plan on fighting for what we deserve. As taxpayers of Urbana and Champaign County, we deserve to have a viable community. And I thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, Melanie Traxler. Okay, would you state your name and address, and would you please keep your remarks to 3 minutes?
Sure. My name is Melanie Traxler. I live at 702 West University Avenue in Champaign. I am a teacher at King Elementary School, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a teacher and also as a concerned citizen. I'm wholeheartedly against the City of Urbana granting the liquor license to the owner of the convenience store that's proposed to be built within several hundred feet of King Elementary School. And at King School, we already experienced vandalism to school property, litter of alcohol containers, and theft on school property. Adding the sale of alcohol to this mix in a location that's so close to the school will only increase these and other problems. And people who don't live or work in the King neighborhood may ask how simply giving a liquor license to a store owner affects them. It will directly affect all the people who live and work in the neighborhood because the purchase and consumption of alcohol in the neighborhood will increase, which will almost certainly lead to an increase in the crimes of vandalism and theft, as well as other more serious crimes and problems. Granting a liquor license to the store owner will also have direct effects on everyone else who lives in Urbana and pays taxes. The increase in crime would be expensive, and ultimately all taxpayers pay for our schools, including extra and unnecessary spending to pay for vandalism to school property. On a more basic level, as citizens who are trying to make our neighborhoods better and not worse, why would we want to even introduce another store to buy alcohol, especially so close to a school? I urge you to consider the obvious. Please do not place the economic interests of one individual store owner above the well-being and safety of an entire neighborhood of children and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Benita Rollins-Gay. Please state your name and address and keep your remarks to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Benita Rollins-Gay. I live at 1205 West Dublin in Urbana, and I am representing the area concerned about the liquor store and having the liquor store in the area. I just want to take you back. I'm also a member of Urbana School Board. I want to take you back a while. There were 2 students who were skipping school, and this is actually a true story. They were skipping school over in the area of where his store is now located. What happened? 2 guys were coming out the liquor store, told them they had liquor and drugs, and come go with us. Those 2 students were raped, all of them under the age of 14. So this gives you an example of what can happen if we do a liquor store. Statistically, January, February, April, June, July, September, and December of 2004, police were called. And when I say you had large amounts of domestic violence, and I'm in the field of mental health, and we do prevention, and now, believe it or not, a lot of bars have been getting written up based on 18-year-olds have been volunteering to go in there. So if they can do it there, I'm sure they're doing it there. Wednesday night, I was taking a client home. There were 5 police officers who could be doing something else, but they were preventing 2 fights last Wednesday night. Where? At that liquor store. 2 people were arrested. Now, when these people are arrested, this is not the first time they frequent the liquor store. They've been there 3 times that day. I have a problem with that. I have 2 teenagers who are growing up very observant, and to actually have this type of crime in our area is not needed. You need to look at the picture of a community center for these youth, not adding crime, more crime to the area. And you also need, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to get with university students to do a study based on the alcohol from this store is triggering the behaviors that these people are portraying. So I want you to think deeply, because some of you, if you don't have children, you have grandchildren. And believe me, the people can buy the liquor and then go to your area too. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this topic? We have a couple of other people that wanted to speak, and I thought we could have them talk when their topic comes up. And right now, we'll move into the, okay. Robert Lewis would like to present a petition.
I'll get used to this mic in a minute. Mine was the worst one of the bunch. But first of all, being a representative of Ward 3, I want to thank those people that have come forward and expressed their concern, not only for the issue that was presented tonight with regard to a special use permit for alcohol for the grocery store located on Fairview, but more importantly, I feel you have made a profound statement as to what really comes first, a business or our children. Obviously, you are for our children, and it's imperative that we act upon that tonight. And I want to personally thank you for your efforts in trying to make this happen tonight. Tonight I have in excess of 300 petitions that I'd like to put on record for the people of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I think we'll start with our, yes.
I also have an
Dan.
announcement before we get into the agenda of the evening. I just wanted to announce that this weekend Urbana will be gaining a community center in the heart of its downtown. The old Urbana post office has been converted into the Independent Media Center's Community Media and Arts Center. So I wanted to invite folks this Friday to a tour at 1 o'clock. At the center, you'll be able to tour the upstairs, the downstairs, and the first floor. Also on Friday, the Urbana Free Library will be receiving a wireless node so that folks who are in the library will be able to get online inside in 2 hotspots and also outside the library. On Saturday at 7 o'clock, there's going to be a 5-band show. And on Sunday at between 4 and 7 o'clock, Radio Free Urbana is going to be going on the air. So folks who are interested in celebrating this new community asset can come out and join us. Hope you all can join us. Thanks.
Okay, I think what we'll do is start with our community development staff on ordinance number 2005-11-152, an ordinance approving a special use permit to allow the establishment of retail liquor sales as part of a grocery store in the B1 Neighborhood Zoning District, 907 West Fairview Avenue, Plan Case Number 1960-SU-05. And then we'll hear from our City Attorney, Jim Gitz, before the council members ask questions. Nat Wempe from Community Development.
I didn't get to the second sentence there. Just to note, before we start, right before the meeting, we handed out a revised memo for this case. There were a few wording changes within the memo itself. Does everybody have one, I guess, before I start? There were a few wording changes, but the major change came in the summary of findings, which you will find on page 7 now. And starting with what is now number 3, the wording was changed from would on balance pose a detriment to the district. It is now would pose a detriment to the district. And then what was I guess what is now would be more appropriate. Number 8, that was changed from the proposed store, or the proposed use is generally compatible to although the proposed although the grocery store is generally compatible with the existing land use pattern of the subject site and surrounding area, a liquor store poses special concerns. And then what is now number 7. I should step back. I think I got those last 2 confused. Yes, number 7 now it's been shortened from what it was, and number 8 has been changed to say that the grocery store is consistent with the future land use designation, although the comp plan does not address the liquor store aspect of this. So those are the major changes. There were several findings deleted, and those were 7, 8, and 11 on your old memo for reference. And those changes came about. There were additional concerns that the legal division got to CD staff today. There were legal staff out of the office last week, so that's why there was changes after the memo went out to you originally. As you've heard, Happy Brothers 9, they've submitted a request to allow retail liquor sales as part of a grocery store that it will be located at 907 West Fairview Avenue in the B1 Neighborhood Business Zoning District. Liquor is commonly defined as beer, wine, and/or hard alcohol, and the petitioners have agreed to only sell beer and wine if the special use is granted. This is located in the building that was previously occupied by Marino Engineering, and if you will remember, they've recently received approval to move to the old KinderCare facility off Philo Road. The building itself at Fairview is approximately 2,350 square feet. The petitioners will obviously modify this building so it fits the needs of a grocery store. And the special use permit, and we should be clear on this, is to allow just the retail liquor sales component. Grocery stores under 3,500 square feet in the B1 district are permitted by right. And obviously the retail liquor sales requires a special use permit. And just east of this site is the Family Video on Lincoln Avenue. There's a cross-access agreement across the front access drive of Family Video, which was granted by Marino Engineering. So this is how access is provided via Lincoln Avenue to the proposed store. And there's also 2 curb cuts on Fairview Avenue itself that would allow for vehicular access. The corner of Fairview and Lincoln has historically been used as commercial. The 1982 Urbana Comprehensive Plan identifies the future land use as commercial, and the 1989 King Park Plan also identifies this site as suitable for commercial. During public workshops for the recent comp plan, many neighbors expressed their desire to have a convenience store nearby that could serve daily needs for the neighborhood. And based on this input, the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan further identifies this area as suitable for commercial uses. There is a zoning interpretation that is behind this case, and that goes as such. In 2004, the city revised allowable uses in the B1 district. Under these new regulations, a grocery store, as I've said, is permitted by right if the building is less than 3,500 square feet, and if by special use, if more than 3,500 square feet. A convenience store always requires a special use permit, and retail liquor sales always require a special use permit. City staff had to determine whether or not this proposal was a grocery store or a convenience store under our ordinance. The zoning ordinance, unfortunately, does not define any of these 3 terms. Definitions published by the American Planning Association indicate that the typical distinction between a grocery store and a convenience store is size. Often a grocery store is being at least 10,000 square feet, and it offers a more diverse product line than a convenience store. However, under the recently amended regulations for the B1 district, the Urbana zoning ordinance allows grocery stores under 3,500 square feet by right. The rationale behind this regulation was to encourage neighborhood grocery stores, such as the Sunshine Grocery on Race in Washington, to be located in the B1 district. Thus, within the confines of the Urbana zoning ordinance, The distinction between grocery and convenience store is product line. And you'll see attached as Exhibit F to your memo, there's a listing of products that the petitioner submitted to us that they indicate that the store will carry grocery items such as milk, eggs, dry goods, fresh vegetables, and frozen food. And according to the same exhibit, groceries will constitute 75% of the store's product line. The remainder of this product line will include cigarettes, snacks, beer, and wine. And based on this, the zoning administrator made the determination that there was enough diversity in the product line to call the business a grocery store. And the zoning administrator also determined that the proposed alcohol sales would require special use under the provisions of the table of uses, which require retail liquor sales in the B1 district to obtain a special use permit. The only other instances of alcohol sales in the B1 district are 2 gas stations on Green Street, and in this case, liquor sales are grandfathered use since the gas stations were constructed prior to the properties being zoned B1 in 1991. If this special use permit request is denied, the grocery store can still be established if the petitioner so chooses, but will not be permitted to sell liquor of any type. And in addition, if the product line changes from the mixture indicated in Exhibit F, the grocery store would be in violation of the zoning ordinance use regulations. At such time, the owner would have to restore the appropriate product mixture or apply for a special use permit to allow a convenience store. The liquor license regulations of the city, in this case, there's 2 relevant types. There is a triple B liquor license, which allows for the off-premise consumption of beer and wine. And there is also a C liquor license, which allows for the off-premise consumption of packaged liquor sales. That includes hard alcohol. The mayor's office has indicated that there are no C liquor licenses available, and the petitioners will most likely apply for a triple B liquor license contingent upon approval of this request. In order to receive a liquor license, application and fee must be submitted and must be approved by individual department heads. The police department conducts a background check on the business owner, and the Illinois State Police conduct a fingerprint background check for the manager. As far as development regulations, the proposed store would be located in an existing building. As I mentioned, they would have to retrofit it in order to serve their needs. The building is not expected to be expanded beyond its current square footage. Parking is already provided for on this site, and there are access drives on both Lincoln and Fairview Avenue. According to the ordinance, the requirement for a grocery store is one parking space for every 250 square feet of retail space, for a total number of 10 required parking spaces. 1 handicap accessible parking space is required. And based on aerial photographs and analysis by both CD and engineering, it is determined that the petitioners could reasonably meet their parking requirements. The proposed store is not allowed to have a freestanding sign, and a wall sign can only comprise 10% of the wall area, but be no greater than 150 square feet. Staff's recommending a condition that there is no external sign lighting, which is intended to minimize the impacts on adjacent residential properties. The surrounding properties, as I mentioned, to the east there's the family video site. Immediately west, south, and north are residential properties in the King Park neighborhood. Also to the north there is the Care Center of Urbana, which is a Medicare, Medicaid, and VA skilled care facility. Immediately south there is a home daycare, and the 2005 comp plan recommends that this neighborhood business area expand northward along Lincoln Avenue just to where King Park meets Lincoln Avenue. The store is approximately 590 feet from King Elementary School and 175 feet from Care Center of Urbana. These distances are in excess of the 100 feet required by the state statute regarding regulation of liquor sales near churches, schools, nursing homes, and military naval stations. On October 20th, there was a public hearing held with the Plan Commission. A number of residents spoke, and approximately 14 were opposed to the site, and nobody spoke in favor of the use. There's a summary here of the public comments. I don't think there's anything to add on what you've already heard. It's a very excellent summary. One resident at the hearing presented a petition but did not formally submit it. However, I believe, have you passed this out? So now you have a formal petition that the city clerk should have provided everybody. There's approximately 245 signatures, give or take, on this. From the zoning perspective, if 40% of owners within 250 feet of the subject property sign a petition, it forces a 2/3 vote in city council. Unfortunately, this petition only reached the 28% of owners living within that area, so it does not force a 2/3 vote. Just a simple majority is typical. The Plan Commission listened to comments and concerns, and they clarified several points, at which point they voted 8 ayes and 0 nays to recommend that the City Council deny the special use permit request. Just going over the requirements for a special use. One, that the proposed use is conducive to the public convenience. Obviously, the residents have said the majority of what is being argued in this point. The liquor component of the store could possibly be convenient for those who choose to purchase it due to the accessibility of the subject property. However, as noted, liquor sales could be detrimental to the neighborhood due to the proximity to King School, King Park, a home daycare, and the care center of Urbana. Many residents of the Plan Commission spoke about the problems that already exist in the area. There's loitering, there's littering with liquor bottles, especially around King School. One resident noted that Douglas Park in Champaign is no longer a safe place for children to play because of the number of people who drink alcohol near the park. Overall, there was a fear that this site would only compound problems that have been in the neighborhood for some time. That the proposed use is designed, located, and proposed to be operated so it will not be unreasonably injurious or detrimental to the district. The petitioner has indicated that beer and wine will be sold and stored in coolers. The petitioner has also argued that beer and wine are available for purchase at 3 other gas stations along North Lincoln Avenue. That's the Mobil, the BP, and Circle K. Majority of residents expressed concern about the proximity to King School and King Park. As several people said, Fairview Avenue is one of the main walking routes to King School, and children would likely use the store to purchase grocery and other snack items. In addition to the proposed use, some residents also stated that they would not support the grocery store itself. They noted that small grocery stores often charge more for products that can be found in larger grocery stores. Many people in the neighborhood have access to private automobile, and they currently shop at these larger stores. Number 3, that the proposed use conforms to applicable regulations and standards and preserves the character of the district. Although the grocery store aspect meets the zoning regulations, the liquor sales component, being a special use, fails to meet these requirements for not being detrimental to the neighborhood. There are the intents of the 3 districts, the B1 neighborhood business district, the residential districts in general, and then more specifically the R2 district, which most residential properties surrounding this are zoned. The common thread among these 3 are compatibility. King Park is a very close-knit residential community. The school and the park, which are 2 social centers for the neighborhood, are located just north of the site. Much of the rationale for this has been on the overall negative impact of liquor in the neighborhood. And these concerns are largely based on past experience. And it should be noted the city has invested significant funds in the form of block grants, and King School and King Park properties have both recently been upgraded. Given these concerns and dependent upon the management practices of the store, it's possible that this would be detrimental to the public welfare. So going over our summary of findings, number 1, the requested special use permit is only regarding the retail liquor sales component of the proposed store. 2, the interpretation of the zoning administrator. The proposed store would be considered a grocery store based on the proposed product line submitted by the petitioner. According to table F-1 or 5-1 of the ordinance, a grocery store under 3,500 square feet is permitted by right in the neighborhood business district. 3, the proposed use would likely not be conducive to the public convenience at this location. Residents have expressed concern about the potential negative impact of the proposed use on the area, including loitering along Fairview Avenue, safety issues, alcohol-related litter, and accessibility of liquor. 4, the proximity of the proposed use to King School and King Park, two social centers in the neighborhood, is a concern. Many residents noted existing problems with liquor bottles and other litter along King Park and on the King School grounds, loitering and harassment of children walking to school along Fairview Avenue. 5, the proposed use would pose a detriment to the district in which it is proposed to be located. Although the proposed store will be more than 100 feet from the King School, King Park, and the Care Center of Urbana, the accessibility and visibility of liquor near these sensitive uses is a concern. 6, several residents spoke in opposition to the proposed special use permit at the October 20, 2005 Plan Commission meeting. 7, the proposed use is generally compatible with the existing land use pattern of the subject site and surrounding area. The site has historically been used for some type of commercial use. And 8, although the grocery store is consistent with the future land use designation of community business for the subject property, as identified by a 2005 Urbana Comp Plan, the Urbana Comp Plan does not address the liquor store aspect. And so your options in this case, 1, you can approve the request for a special use permit without any additional conditions. 2, you can approve the request for a special use permit with any conditions deemed necessary or appropriate. Or 3, you can deny the request for a special use permit. And based on the evidence presented in the discussion above, the Plan Commission recommended that the City Council deny Plan Case 1960-SU-05. Staff concurs with this recommendation. If the City Council chooses to approve the case, staff recommends the following conditions. 1, that the proposed use shall only be eligible for a BBB liquor license for the off-premise consumption of beer and wine. The proposed store shall not be eligible for a C liquor license without an amendment to the special use permit, including further review by the Plan Commission and approval by City Council. 2, that any signs or other means of advertising beer, wine, or cigarette sales shall not be visible from the public right-of-way. 3, that grocery products as identified in Exhibit F shall constitute at least 75% of all products available for sale. Non-grocery products as identified in Exhibit F shall not exceed 25% of all products available for sale as measured by relative shelf space or square footage. 4, that the hours of operation shall be no earlier than 7:30 a.m. and no later than 12 midnight, Monday through Saturday, no earlier than 8 a.m. and no later than 10 p.m. on Sunday as outlined in Exhibit F. 5, that no additional exterior lighting shall be permitted except as where deemed appropriate by the zoning administrator. 6, that the signage related to the proposed store shall meet all requirements of the Urbana zoning ordinance. The sign shall be externally illuminated in a manner approved by the zoning administrator. And 7, that one handicapped accessible parking space shall be created prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. So, sorry, that was a very verbatim reading of that memo. Just to clarify one point, because it had come up during Plan Commission, the way staff could possibly enforce the 75-25 split on product line is, 1, we could physically go into the store with a ruler and figure out how much square footage is being used for grocery products and how much is being used for non-grocery products. Or another solution would be that we would respond to a neighbor complaint, in which case we would send one of our building inspectors to go out there and investigate it. So if there are any questions.
Lynn Barnes.
I move to deny ordinance number 2005-11152.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Smythe?
I thought that Jim was going to speak to it a little bit.
Would you like to speak, Mr. Gibbs?
Mayor and members of the council, the only thing that I wish to share with you is that how you decide this matter is very important in the eyes of the law. The Illinois Supreme Court looks upon special use permits as a ministerial decision by some recent cases, and what that means is that you have to take the zoning ordinance and apply it, and you have to apply it evenly. It is not a legislative decision where you can treat one different than another. Second, the special use permit is a zoning decision. It's not about whether we individually like or dislike liquor. It's strictly whether you're going to grant an appropriate conditional use that is consistent with your zoning ordinance and consistent with the area. And the third point that I want to share with you is that your decision has to bear a relationship to the public health, safety, and general welfare. And in a case in 2001 by the Illinois Supreme Court called Chicago Heights versus Living Word Full Gospel Church, the court went so far as to talk about this specifically, and it said, in part, a special use permit may not be denied on the grounds that the use is not in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood. Instead, a special use permit must be denied when it is determined from the facts and circumstances that the grant of the special requested exception would result in an adverse effect upon the adjoining and surrounding properties that is unique and different from the adverse effect that would otherwise result. So you have to look at this and say, is there something about this location that is unique and exceptional? For example, its proximity to the school, perhaps, or the impact on children, or the impact on the right-of-way, and base your decision on that, not necessarily some of the other factors that have been determined. Should the council not apply the criteria that courts have applied, then the petitioner has the right, if he should so choose, to go to a court and attempt to prove that the action is arbitrary and capricious. And in fact, in the case that I'm quoting, they did exactly that. So I just wanted to underscore the importance of looking at this record, looking at your zoning ordinance, looking at the facts and circumstances, and applying them as their relationship to the health, life, safety, and general welfare for the basis of your decision.
So as a follow-up then, I have a question for both Jim and then Matt. We have a summary of findings on page 7 that lists 8 different items. And, you know, this is the structure by which we would deny the petition. And it strikes me that this is pretty strong evidence and language. And I assume that this is sufficient to give us a strong legal grounds on which to deny this petition. Okay, thank you. And then Matt, assuming that we do deny this the special use, and they go ahead and do build a grocery store, what are the B1 implications for their hours of operation, signage, and so on? What are they allowed by right if they just go ahead and do a grocery store without the special use permit?
As far as hours of operation go, I don't think that the zoning ordinance would impose any requirements as such. Maybe I'm correct then. As far as signage goes, as I said, they can't have a freestanding sign. That's in the ordinance currently. That B1, you cannot have a freestanding sign. So they would have to use a wall sign, which presumably could not project, but it would just be a typical wall sign. They can't be over 10% of the wall area itself, and it can't be bigger than 150 square feet, which I'm sure the 10% would apply in this case before the 150 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
One other comment, and I don't want to take this to infinitum, but in the B1 classification, the people have spoken to the issue of our children's safety. And just recently, in 116, the concept of a community school has taken on a new meaning. Children travel from a farther distance to come to school. They're not bused all the time. So the state requirement of the 100 and 200 feet or whatever it is not appropriate anymore in any place in a B1 classification in the city of Urbana. I just want to make that clear.
Ms. Stevenson?
As a mother of 4 young children, I strongly support the denial of this ordinance and commend all of you parents out there for upholding your children and saying that they're number one.
Mr. Roberts?
My understanding is that the Happy Brothers 9 Corporation operates another store in this town. Is that correct? It does not. Okay. the problems that are put forward in the summary of findings is, I think, pretty serious. The proximity of the school and the fact that students use the avenue, Fairview Avenue, for egress and entrance to the school on a regular basis, and that there are students being dropped off by the MTD at a bus stop at the area, indicate that the school would be adversely affected by the presence of a alcoholic beverage sale at this location. And I think that I would find that that would be sufficient grounds to consider denying the request.
Ms. Chenoweth.
Quick questions. The first is, does the owner currently own the property, or do they just have an option to buy?
I think he has an option to buy.
Okay, and the second is, what are the constraints of lighting under the B1 zoning if this is permitted, if this is denied, but the grocery store is permitted by right? Are there lighting constraints?
I don't think there are lighting constraints for B1.
Okay.
Obviously, though, we would encourage, as the condition states, that they do external lighting to minimize overflow onto residents.
Is it your understanding that if this petition is denied, that they'll go ahead and build the grocery store?
It's my understanding that they would most likely not do that.
Or they would most likely withdraw from that location? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smythe.
Just one last thing. I don't think the audience at home or watching this has any idea of how many people are in the audience who oppose the permitting. Could all of you who are here and in favor of denying this special use raise your hand? So about 40, 45 people. Yeah, maybe 50 people here. There are about 50 people here. Mrs. Berg, yes, okay. There are about 50 people here. So, just so people know, I just wanted to thank you all for coming out here and for not all lining up at the microphone and letting just a couple people speak for you. That really saved us a lot of time. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Smythe to deny this petition. Are there any other questions?
Just so people know that to deny this special use, you vote yes.
Okay, all those in favor of denying the petition, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to that? This is a roll call? Well, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
The motion carries. Okay, now get back to the regular order of the agenda. I don't believe there's any old business, is there? Okay, reports of standing committees, Committee of the Whole. Who was that? Mr. Roberts? Mr. Roberts.
Okay, reporting for the Committee of the Whole, which met 2 weeks ago. We have 3 ordinances and 1 resolution. First, number A, an ordinance number 2005-10-147, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance concerning landfill remediation costs for 2006. For the committee, I move that we adopt this ordinance.
Second.
Okay. Your turn.
Do you want a roll call on this one?
Yes.
We would have to have it.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Okay.
Motion carries.
That motion carried. Next, ordinance number 2005-10-148, an annual tax levy ordinance of the City of Urbana, Illinois, for the year beginning July 1st, 2005, and ending June 30th, 2006. That's the fiscal year. For the Committee of the Whole, I would move that this be adopted.
Second. Motion by Mr. Roberts and seconded by Ms. Stevenson, I believe. Is that correct? Another roll call?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth? Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe, did you want to vote on the tax levy ordinance? Mr. Smythe votes yes. Motion carries.
Okay.
Mr. Roberts.
Next is a resolution, number 2005-10-020R, a resolution directing the Champaign County Clerk to abate the tax levy for the general corporate purpose of the year beginning July 1st, 2005 and ending June 30th, 2006. That would be the fiscal year. For the Committee of the Whole, I so move.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Lynn Barnes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Roberts.
Okay. Finally, ordinance number 2005-10-149, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code prohibiting parking at all times on certain streets concerning Florida Avenue. For the Committee of the Whole, I would move that this be adopted.
Second. You moved it, right?
I moved.
So, second.
There's motion by Mr. Roberts and seconded by Ms. Stevenson. Is there any discussion? If not, would we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That ends, I'm just saying that would end the business of the Committee of the Whole, and our next meeting will be in 2 weeks, Monday, and that would be the 21st.
For 1 week?
1 week. In 1
Yes,
week.
right, 1 week. It'd be the 14th.
And the chair is?
Heather Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Reports of officers.
Mayor, I was just wondering if, real quickly, we could take care of anything else that has public here. I know that there's somebody here to speak to H4, the major variance in the University Zoning District. I was just wondering if
Well,
this...
I asked them if they wanted to speak when it comes up.
I was just going
Do
to
they-
say,
do they want to speak now?
if we just move that to now.
All right.
And deal with anything else that has public here,
We
that
can
we can
do
get out of
that.
here.
Now, which one is that?
It's H4. Or, and then people here for 3 as well. Yeah. Could do H4 and then H3. New business 4 and then new business 3 that have people here for.
Five-foot setback.
Okay, you want to do ordinance number 2005-11-151?
Yes, and then.
Okay,
and
let's have a motion to put those things
then
at the
move
top of the
that
agenda here.
H4 and H3 be taken up next.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smythe, seconded by Ms. Chenoweth. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Let's start with ordinance number 2005 dash, you want to do 150 or 151? 151, an ordinance approving a major variance to allow a 100% encroachment for parking into the required 5-foot side yard setback in the B3U General Business University Zoning District at 903 West Nevada Street, case number ZBA-05-MAJ-5.
Okay, this is a case presented by Bar Real Estate. They are requesting a major variance for their property at 903 West Nevada Avenue in Nevada Street in Urbana. This location is one lot west of the southwest corner of Lincoln Avenue and Nevada Street. If I could have the Elmo, please. Take a look at that. Zooming out. Okay. Is that in focus? All right. The location we're looking at is right here. Actually, it's this front part of the lot. Currently, there's an existing house right there. To the east is the Cafe Paradiso and Jimmy John's building. Okay. Again, it's one lot west of the southwest corner of Lincoln Avenue and Nevada. It's somewhat irregularly shaped, with the main portion here and including a little bit of a strip down here towards the south. It's approximately 7,300 square feet and would be cleared prior to the proposed construction of a new 4-story apartment building with parking underneath at the ground level. The petitioner's request for a major variance is to allow the new parking area to encroach 100% into the required 5-foot side yard setback along the east property line. If we can take a look now at the site diagram. This view takes a look at the proposed building at the ground level. Again, we'd have parking here on the first floor. The confines of the building would be right about here. And the part we're concerned with is the 5-foot encroachment of the parking into the side yard directly adjacent to the Cafe Paradiso building and Jimmy John's. Okay. On October 19th, 2005, the Urbana Zoning Board of Appeals voted unanimously 4-0 to recommend approval of the major variance to the City Council. This new apartment building is proposed to have 3 habitable floors above the ground level of parking. There would be 15 2-bedroom units with 5 units on each floor. The Urbana zoning ordinance bases multifamily parking requirements on the size of the bedrooms. All 30 bedrooms are designed to be approximately 119 square feet or less, so they would require 1/2 parking space each. I believe I have a diagram of the general layout. Okay. So there would be 1/2 parking space for each bedroom. The zoning ordinance requires, when we have parking modules, that the width would be 60 feet. If we look over at this one right here, that the module width includes the length of the parking space, the length of the aisle, and then the length of the next parking space. The subject lot is only 65 feet wide, which with a 60-foot parking module width would leave only 5 feet for the 2 required 5-foot side yards. We have a 5-foot side yard here on the west, and we would have to have a 5-foot side yard here on the east. The petitioners propose to maintain the western side yard, but have the parking encroach into the east side yard. And if we're going to take a look again at the current existing condition, here is the house that's on the location right now. Again, we'd have about 5 feet on the right side, and they want to maintain the full 5-foot side yard setback on the west side. Okay. We can take a look at a couple of site photographs right now. Again, this is a view down the south down the east property line. What we're looking at right there is an existing retaining wall between the 2 properties. The petitioners propose to add a screening fence on top of that, located about 15 feet back at the side yard set line. I'm sorry, at the front yard setback line. The first 30 feet of the proposed parking area would be immediately adjacent to this parking area at Cafe Paradiso. And if we look at it on the other diagram, we'd have the retaining wall all along here and the fence on top of the existing retaining wall right along there. Okay. The plans indicate that there would be about 10 foot 10 inches between the east wall of the new apartment building, and to reiterate, the wall of the apartment building will be approximately right here, 5 feet set back from the yard line, side yard line, and the encroachment is only the parking. Okay, so it's 5 feet back from that, and it is 5 feet 10 inches to the existing Cafe Paradiso building. So we have about 10 feet 10 inches between the east wall of the new apartment building and the west face of the existing Cafe Paradiso building. That would provide sufficient separation between the buildings for light, air circulation, access, and fire safety. Generally, the most optimal location on the lot for the new parking area is to extend these spaces east, encroaching 100% into the 5 foot side yard setback. That provides the most logical and efficient and safe layout for the parking area. The variance criteria we could take a look at. We're done with the Elma now. In order to we're through with the overhead. Okay. At the October 19, 2005 meeting, the ZBA voted their recommendation of approval based upon the following findings. Were there any special circumstances or practical difficulties shown with reference to the parcel concerned? The practical difficulty is that the lot is only 65 feet wide, and side yard requirement limits the possible geometric arrangements for parking. With that requirement, possible parking arrangements would reduce the number of spaces below requirements and also make access from Nevada Street more difficult. The 5 foot encroachment into the east side yard would allow more efficient parking arrangements. Number 2, the proposed variance would not serve as a special privilege because the variance requested is necessary due to special circumstances. The special circumstance is that many years ago the lot was platted 65 feet wide, and that is narrower than lots are usually platted now. In addition, the rear 44 feet of the lot was sold to the property to the east. It is not possible to put enough parking in a single-sided parking module because the lot is too short. The lot is too narrow to accommodate a double-sided parking module and also maintain both side yards. So the circumstance on this unique lot is that the properties are constrained by being both, the lot is constrained by being both too short and too narrow. Third, the variance requested is not the result of a situation or condition being knowingly or deliberately created by the petitioner. The need for the variance has not yet been created. The petitioner is aware of the requirements of the parking ordinance, the zoning ordinance, and has applied for variances prior to construction. Number 4, the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The requested decrease of the side yard setback is consistent with conditions found on other nearby East Campus properties and would not have a detrimental impact on the character of the neighborhood. Number 5, the variance will not cause a nuisance to adjacent properties. The petitioners own the immediately adjacent lot to the east. The structure of the new building itself will be outside or at the setback line. The required separation of the buildings will be achieved, and according to the petitioner, the tenants have been notified and have indicated support of the variance. Number 6, the variance represents generally the minimum deviation from requirements of the zoning ordinance necessary to accommodate the request. The petitioner, again, is requesting the minimum deviation from requirements to accommodate the constraints of the parcel, the zoning ordinance requirements for parking lot dimensions, and for the number of parking spaces required. Options in this case: the council may grant the variance as requested based on the findings outlined in the memo. The council may grant the variance subject to terms and conditions. If the council elects to impose additional conditions or grants the variance on findings other than those presented, they should articulate those findings. And third possibility, the council may deny the variance request. Again, if the council elects to do so, they should articulate findings supporting the denial. Based upon the findings outlined herein, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted 4-0 to forward the variance request with a recommendation for approval with one condition, and staff concurs with the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation. The condition of approval would be that the development on the site must generally conform to the site plan submitted with the application.
Are there any questions? Mr. Roberts?
Maybe I have two questions. If I read this properly, is the first floor parking at ground level, or will it be somewhat sunken?
Essentially, the property as it is now has a slight rise, probably about maybe 2 feet from the level of the street. As I understand it, the lot is going to be completely lowered to grade level. We have the architect and the owner here, so they could answer that more directly. It's not going to be underground per se. It's going to be level with the lots next door.
I see. Okay. Then the parking of cars that are facing the building to the east, their headlights would be pointing at the building when they pulled in and out, if it was night or dark.
Yes, they would.
That's the purpose of the
That's the purpose of the screening and maintaining the retaining wall, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think I'll save my other question for a general discussion.
We do have a request from David Barr and Russ Dankert. Would you like to come up and answer questions or make a statement? All three of you could be there to answer questions if you like, since we have 3 chairs now at that table.
These are the petitioners, the petitioner and his architect, so they can answer questions.
Just right here. Okay. Hi, I'm Dave Barr, and this is my second visit to you all on this property, and hopefully my last, and hopefully we can get her going. I was hoping all those people showed up before to support my 5-foot zoning variance, but, hey, I'm glad they got what they wanted to get done. The only thing I can tell you is Russ will attend to details as to a variance, and you've heard from these folks as to, it's a very, that's a technical matter, which I'll let Russ address, and if you've got questions, probably he's better to address it, any technical elements than I am. But I've had time to reflect on this, and our family has, and the more we reflect on it, the more we feel strongly about this building, really in regards to the other properties that we own and that we oversee. And I think the reason for that is because we feel like we have a chance to do some of the greatest improvement of a property that we've had. The existing structure is not good. The existing structure, regardless of what happens, needs to come down. That's our opinion. It has not been profitable to operate. We've looked at what could happen and how it could be redone, and it just doesn't add up. So we feel like we can come back with something that is going to be a real plus to the neighborhood. And we've got some preliminary drawings, and our instructions to Russ have been, these are great. It really looks attractive, and I'll address some of the things that we want to get done in this, but we want to make it even nicer. Our goal is to have the nicest, most attractive, safe, when I emphasize safe, because we're going to go above and beyond the call of what is required and already have in the city of Urbana, and I've spoken to Laurel about some code things that we're going to be, involved in going forward, but safe is a keynote on this property, and this is something why we don't like what is there now. And what is there now, we feel like, even with work and everything else, it's not feasible to do and come up with with something that's going to work. What we intend to do here, as you've been explained to, is have a first floor be parking. And as I understand it, Russ, our building comes up now, but that grade will come down, so you won't have 4 stories going up height-wise. It'll be slightly above what is next door to us now, but not much. So we want something that fits in with the neighborhood, we are going to spend the time and the money to architecturally get something that looks very attractive. The features within the building that we're going to is similar to what we did on 611 Green, but a little different twist. Our plan is right now to go in with a hardwood flooring, to do cherry hardwood flooring, do maple cabinetry, do black and white granite countertops, do recessed lighting all the way throughout, do a security entrance to the building. The whole building will be sprinkled. The whole building will have hardwired smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors throughout. Of course, everything else, it's a complete upgrade as far as codes go, and, window size and everything else that, is standard these days is going to be brought up, and we're going to use the best materials that we can come up with on the exterior of the building, trying even to make the interior stairways attractive, well-lit, safe, and once again, even to the point that we're looking at how we wrap the stairs, and what is a good treaded grip material. So we want to have, when it comes down to it, Russ's instructions are to make it as nice as he can possibly make it. And also on the rent levels on this thing, people are saying, well, it's going to be exorbitant. It's not going to be that bad. New construction is more expensive in every case than older existing construction. That's the nature of the beast. But we think our rent levels for the product we're going to provide will be affordable. For the quality that's going to be out there, the rents are going to be reasonable. And I think we'll get a mix of people. I think that we will have undergraduates. I think we'll have graduates. I would think that we would have working professionals living in this building. I will tell you right now we will. And I would say we would have faculty and staff living there as well. We will have a mix of folks in this building over a period of time. It will not be just one group of people. And we're taking our time, like I say, and really doing the thinking, and Russ and his staff are doing the thinking to make this thing attractive and something. We're building it to be a 100-year building. We want this thing, and 611 Green, we hope, when you come back in but in 100 years, whoever's sitting here, that the thing is still an attractive-looking structure. That's what our goal is now, is to provide a structure that is going to last as a generational deal. And the only part that I will address, as far as the technical nature of the variance, is part of it is we have owned what we're really asking for is just the right to park. We're not moving the structure any closer than the structure is allowed under the zoning ordinance that we have in place. We're just asking that the parking be moved closer to the building that we also own. Our family has owned since mid-1960s to the east and has no intention to sell, and that will be, once again, a generational, these two properties together will go down as a generational, conglomerate. And so what we're asking is to let us work in between the properties, and even in between them, Russ, we have extensive screening, right, even though we're really, most of it faces, I think, just block wall. Is that correct?
Well, there are some windows on the second floor. But
right. But as far as the first level where the parking pulls in, it faces just block wall now.
Car lights will be screened off by both a wall and some landscaping.
Yeah, we're putting in a wall and landscaping. And so and please, if somebody has an idea of saying, well, Dave, we think, something would make this thing more attractive, okay. I don't have a problem with that. Our goal is to do that and to make it, fit in there and look good.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, a few questions about making it look attractive. I'm really glad to hear that you want this to be a 100-year building, and I think this district is very well suited to quality construction. This building isn't in the MOR, which some other properties that you've done are, and the MOR has design guidelines that require particular things, and I hope you look at those, in this case, too, to think about how this building can really relate to the street and to the other buildings around it well, because the design guidelines make a lot of sense even though they aren't required. Two questions that the design guidelines have that aren't required but that I hope you consider are will you have windows facing the street? And will there be a pitch roof maybe that matches the building to the east that you own? Are either of those two things going to be included?
Yes and yes. We're not in final design yet because we've got one that we like, but there is one family member who is an owner of this property, my mom, and she came back and Mom said, make it nicer. And that's a fact. She looked and said, nice try, good work, but I want it nicer. And so that's just the deal. And she was also instrumental in 611 Green in, that process as well. And that's what we've got is we will do it won't be a flat roof. Ain't no way.
Great.
It may end up actually, it won't appear from the street as a flat roof. It'll have an arched component to it, but sometimes you do those and you can't tell that it's not a flat roof. It actually is, but you build up the arch to give the appearance of the vaulted roof all the way around. That's how it'll be. And yes, we have windows designed, even though the way the units face, this is shown, I think, down in this corridor as stairwell. Even then, we're not going to have a solid component. There'll be even though we'll put windows in, and we've already discussed for safety purposes what we want those windows to be like. And whether or not it is required by code, those are going to be windows that you couldn't break, if you wanted to. And they're going to be out of people's reach, too. But we thought the same thing. We wanted the windows on the street side.
That's great. Thank you very much.
And the other thing, some things that we're going to do, the balconies are shown here are too plain. We're going to make them more ornate. And Russ is developing some different schemes now. This is an attractive building as it is now. It'd be one of the nicest structures in town, but not the nicest. That's what I want. And so hopefully, and you can see here what is shown is the screening is shown here on the first floor, and there is landscaping that is on that side of it. If it got to be appropriate, and I don't even know how it lays out, I'd put landscaping on the other side of it just so we don't have visibility of any type of a wall, that it all looked green. I don't have a problem with that either.
Okay. Ms. Chenoweth.
I'd like to move to approve ordinance number 2005-11-151.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Chenoweth and seconded by Ms. Barnes.
Can I speak to the motion briefly?
Yes, please.
Thanks. Two things about this project that I really like. The first is that it increases density west of Lincoln Avenue, and I think we need to do more of that. The second is that it creates 5 more accessible apartments close to campus, and we are in dire need of that kind of accessibility. So I applaud the project.
Mr. Smythe, did you have a comment? Okay, Mr. Roberts.
I actually approve the project. I think it's a good project, but I was just thinking that there would be no need for a zoning variance if the building had just a fewer rental units. And it's just sort of interesting that we have a system. I mean, this project and other projects they kind of overachieve in their planning ability, and then they require adjustments to the zoning so that we can adopt a building that is perhaps larger than would normally be allowed if you were basing it entirely on parking availability. If the building was a 2-story building, all the cars would fit on the first floor, and there would not be a requirement to have a 5-foot variance. And I'm just pointing this out, that a lot of times we go forward in a direction that's positive, perhaps for the city, and we're always the rule seems to be that we would grant every variance that comes along, and I'm thinking that there can be other ways of handling design situations that actually allow buildings to be built within the allowed zoning requirements, and we just don't always follow through on that, and I'm just pointing this out. I'm not going to vote against the project, but I'm just pointing out that there are other ways of solving our problems without constantly allowing variances.
Ms. Barnes.
In response to that, I'd just like to say that I think there are probably a lot of projects that go on that we don't hear about in terms of the special use permits or the zoning changes that need to occur. And obviously, we hear about those that do need to occur because they need to come forward to council. And also, of course, in any project, you've got to, in order to make them economically feasible, you've got to have the right number of apartments, and it's fully vetted in terms of cost analysis, and in order to get this kind of a quality building and make it work financially, I think such a variance in our zoning is not a large issue.
Mr. Smythe.
Okay, use these microphones. I support this entirely. I'm glad to see it being rebuilt. I think one thing people should note is that, the Bars could have actually torn down this house and their current property at the corner and done some big, massive, restructure, structure. Instead, they're tearing down the bad part and going to merge the properties essentially. I almost wish we could merge them even more, and maybe that's something in the future they can look at. I mean, it almost strikes me that the two lots should just be one lot and treated like we do the Gregory Place apartment building, which has business on the first floor and apartments above. The Paradiso Cafe, that whole building area there has apartments on the second floor now. So this essentially is, I like to think of it as one location with the modern use of putting business on the first floor and apartments on the second. In this case, it's business on the first floor and parking on the first floor, apartments on the second floor on up. And, I think it's going to be an attractive building. I'm all for that. I guess the one question I have for you, Dave, is I know the building itself is going to be secure. Is the parking lot, is the parking going to be secure too or not, or is it going to be open?
No, it's one I haven't thought of, Charlie, to be honest with you. The underground stuff, which we could have even attempted to go underground. I don't like underground parking for a lot of reasons. And one of which, we've got some safety and some other stuff. I'm just not a big fan of underground. You can secure the underground ones fairly easily. I've seen that done. I'd have to think. I guess you could do it. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen one done where it's a first floor security. I've seen it done for underground. Honest with you, Charlie, I hadn't thought of that one. It's not shown that way now, but I don't know that I'm opposed to that.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering, if I know that I don't know what kind of other problems other parking garages in there have. I know the one dislike that people have is apartments on stilts. And it looks like you're addressing that issue.
Yeah, we have by landscaping and material usage. On the front, one thing we want to do is, the first thing we said is there will be no, as you'll see here, what you will not see as you look down. This is shown as stone or maybe a faux stone, depending. Just depends on what's going to fit in there, look good, and be okay. But it won't be like you see on some of these buildings where you see brick going up here and then below that concrete. That doesn't get it for me. So we're going to do a combination of landscaping and softer materials on that to soften up that first floor up to the living units.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Chenoweth and second by Ms. Barnes, is that correct? For approving ordinance number 2005-11-151, an ordinance approving a major variance to allow a 100% encroachment for parking into the required 5-foot side yard setback in the B3U General Business University zoning district at 903 West Nevada Street. Case number ZBA-05-MAJ-5. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Well, we're going to do our best to make it look good. So
Thank
you got
you.
this guy here, and he's drawn buildings for us for 30-some years.
And your mother. Taylor.
She ain't gonna
Thank you,
she ain't
Mother,
gonna let it
please.
happen unless it'll sit there before it looks ugly. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to ordinance number 2005-11-150, an ordinance approving a special use permit to allow the installation of a telecommunications antenna with tower in the B4 Central Business Zoning District at 202 South Broadway Avenue, plan case number 1961-SU-05.
Mayor,
Yes.
I will be abstaining to the conversation as well as the vote due to a potential conflict of interest.
Okay. Ms. Chenoweth is abstaining. Yes.
I'll also abstain. I happen to have my place of business in this building. I'm a tenant, so I don't perceive that as a conflict at all. But just for reasons of even appearance of conflict of interest, I'll abstain from discussion of the vote. Thank you.
Mr. Bowersox is abstaining. Proceed.
Okay. The case is a request by the Independent Media Center for a special use permit to install a radio antenna with tower, again at 202 South Broadway Avenue in the B4 Central Business Zoning District. The zoning ordinance states that antennas with towers in the Central Business Zoning District require a special use permit review. The Plan Commission, at its October 20th meeting, conducted a public hearing to consider the case. The Planning Commission voted 8-0 to recommend approval of the special use, including some conditions. Revised conditions were presented to the Commission. Staff is once again recommending an additional revision to the conditions of approval. The former post office building was built in 1914 in a neoclassical style. It is a historically noteworthy structure and will soon be considered for a designation as a local landmark. The Historic Preservation Act, Section 106, requires certain restrictions on buildings of historic nature. The proposed installation must undergo and review and an approval for the Section 106 compliance. The agency that will be doing that review is the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office. Representatives of the Independent Media Center are working with state on attaining this approval. Following the October 20th Plan Commission hearing, Mike Lehman, a representative of the Independent Media Center, who is here with us today, contacted the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office to verify an interpretation that the IMC had for an exemption under the nationwide agreement. The State Historic Preservation Office, again, is considering this request, but has not yet verified that. Because we have not yet received confirmation or response from the State Historic Preservation Office, staff is recommending these revisions to the conditions of approval, so it's possible to approve the special use permit prior to completion of the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office review. We don't believe that staff does not believe it is absolutely necessary for the tower antenna to complete this review process in order to comply with the special use permit criteria under the zoning ordinance. But again, as a caution, staff is recommending that the permit might be reviewed again after a period of 2 years if the State Historic Preservation review has not been completed. Moving on to what the zoning ordinance says, a tower is any structure that is designed and constructed primarily for the purpose of supporting one or more antennas, including self-supporting lattice towers, which is what we have in this case. And this term tower would encompass personal wireless service facilities, radio and television transmission towers, microwave towers, common carrier towers, cellular telephone towers, and the like. An antenna is an exterior apparatus designed for telephonic, radio, data, internet, or television communications through the sending and or receiving of electromagnetic waves. Basically what this comes down to is what we're looking at is the largest component of potential visual obstruction or what might otherwise impact the neighborhood the most is the tower facility itself as opposed to the antenna. Now again, the tower itself is a steel triangular lattice structure. It's probably going to be painted gray or some other color, similar color. It is 17 feet in height and has 18-inch wide sides. Now we'll take a look at the plans here. These are the engineering plans provided by the applicant. From the base on the roof, the tower itself with the lattice structure is going to be 17 feet high. On top of that is another 18 foot of 2.5 inch diameter pipe. Both of those structures are considered part of the tower. The antennas themselves are well, arrow-shaped structures are somewhat like a TV antenna. There'll be 2 of those. Each of them is about 5 feet long, and they'll be kind of sticking out from the sides of the antenna. The purpose of the special use permit review of towers and antennas in the B4 district is to ensure that they're designed and located with reasonable care. And the question for review in the case is whether the placement of the tower and antenna meets the intent of the special use provisions of the zoning code, not to be unreasonably injurious or detrimental to the district in which it shall be located, or otherwise injurious to the public welfare. Also, concern is the potential visual impact of the tower and antenna as viewed by pedestrians or others. Going to move on here to take a look at some of the photographs of the post office, now the Independent Media Center. Let's see, look at this one. What we can kind of see here in the context of it is it's immediately adjacent is the Lincoln Square Mall. And viewed from this position, here we are looking to the west, also the historic Lincoln Hotel. The post office building itself is about the same height as the Lincoln Square Village. It's shorter than some of the other nearby structures, such as the county courthouse and, again, the Lincoln Hotel. It could make the tower antenna more noticeable than it might otherwise be. But at 35 feet tall, the tower antenna will be taller than other rooftop structures found downtown. For example, if we take a look at this one, this is the post office building itself. We're looking from the northeast corner kind of down towards the southwest. Right here we have an air conditioning unit on top of it. This antenna is going to be taller than that air conditioning unit. But again, it's going to be a lot thinner. Again, let's see if I can look at my next photograph. One of the things we attempted to do was to give an indication of just how high the tower antenna might be. Most of these lines here are kind of an attempt to determine where the vanishing point is and what the relative length of the tower would be. As we can see, this corner is about that tall there. It's about that tall down there. Just because of the perspective of shrinkage. And this is what we think the tower is going to look like. It's not absolutely precisely located, but again, it's only going to be about 35 feet tall. And we have to remember that although no attempt in this image was made to show the actual width of the antenna, we should remember that width of the tower. The tower itself, the pipe at the top is only 2.5 inches in diameter, which is, in this image, it would be considerably thinner than the flagpole right here, and probably, let me zoom in, probably not a whole lot thicker than one of these parking meters or the pipes at the steps to the building. Oh, I'm sorry. Parking meter or the pipes at the steps to the building. Moving on to requirements for special use permits. One, that the proposed use would be conducive to the public convenience at that location. The use of a tower antenna is conducive to the public convenience because it would facilitate the operation of the low-power community radio service for residential and business customers in the area. Second criteria, that the proposed use is designed, located, and proposed to be operated so that it would not be unreasonably injurious or detrimental to the district in which it's located. The use should not be unreasonably detrimental to the district. In addition to the tower antenna, would not be visually disharmonious with its urban surroundings and should not have a negative visual impact on surrounding properties. Number 3, that the proposed use conforms to the applicable regulations and standards of and preserves the essential character of the district in which it's located. Antennas with towers are permitted in the B4 Central Business Zoning District under the special use permit review. This facility is designed to meet the applicable regulations and standards of the Urbana Building Code, as well as FCC regulations. Should the special use be granted, the petitioner, of course, would be required to obtain a building permit to erect the tower. And the building permit application would be reviewed again to demonstrate complete compliance with provisions of the special use permit as well as other applicable codes and ordinances. To summarize the findings on which the Plan Commission adopted their recommendation: first, antennas with towers are permitted in the B4 Central Business District. Second, the purpose of the special use permit review is to ensure that they are designed and located with reasonable care. 3, the proposed use is conducive to the public convenience because it would facilitate the operation of the low-power community radio service. 4th, the proposed use should not propose a detriment to the district or to adjoining properties, and it should not have a significant negative visual impact on surrounding properties. 5th, the proposed facility is designed to meet applicable regulations and standards of the building code as well as FCC regulations. 6th, the proposed use is consistent with the zoning designation of the subject site and the surrounding area. And 7, the proposed use is compatible with the existing land use pattern of the general area. Council has the following options in the case: to approve the special use permit, to approve the special use permit with any additional conditions deemed appropriate or necessary for public health, safety, welfare, and to carry out the purposes of the zoning ordinance, or to deny the request for the special use permit. Based on the evidence presented in the discussion above and at the public hearing conducted on October 20th, the Urbana Plan Commission recommended the City Council conditionally approve the proposed special use permit in this case, with the conditions which were modified. Condition 1, the design, installation, and operation of the tower antenna shall be in accordance with all applicable city, state, and federal laws and regulations. 2, that the completed installation of the temporary ballast mount tower and antenna will be in substantial conformity with the submitted engineering diagram. 3, and this is the one that was changed from what you had previously, that within 2 years from the date of the special use permit approval, the applicant shall submit written evidence from the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office that the undertaking has undergone Section 106 historic review. And 4, if after 2 years from the date of the special use permit approval, the applicants have been unable to meet Condition 3, the special use permit shall come under administrative review by the zoning administrator, who may determine that the special use be further reviewed by the Plan Commission and Council, or otherwise brought into conformity with applicable regulations. Any questions?
Ms. Barnes.
I recommend approval of ordinance number 2005-11-150 with the 4 conditions as recommended by staff.
I second it.
Seconded by Mr. Roberts. Motion by Ms. Barnes.
I got one question.
There's a question from Mr. Lewis.
You said the historical preservation people have to review this application with regard to, I'm thinking, connections to their building, right?
The principal concern, well, one of the concerns is that you can't modify the building in a permanent manner.
I understand.
If it's going to be some kind of detriment to the historic nature. And that's why the IMC has gone with a temporary ballast mount antenna.
But I noticed what they did is they applied it to the existing 2x8 joist through the roof structure. That's what the drawing indicated.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, the loading requirements on this tower was, the dynamics was without ice.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where that was.
Oh, it's just on the drawings. There's, on the notations on the drawings, it specifically specifies that the wind load for this tower is 90 with no ice. And if I were one of the people looking at this building, I would strongly look at what's going on with this tower with a load of ice on it to that old structure.
I'm not sure how to assess that directly. The Urbana building safety people have taken a look at these plans. They will be reviewing them to ensure that they comply with all of their applicable codes and regulations. If it is a case that it has to, if the loading if the loading requirements do include ice, they'll look at it from that perspective.
Sure. Okay, so more specific questions of this nature that answer. I'm Mike Lehman, by the way. I'm the person who's sort of been the coordinator for this effort. I'm certainly not the person who's brought it all along. It's really a community effort. Basically, the design criteria that I believe is called for within the engineering specs. So that's what they designed for, is a 90-mile wind load. What happens is the ice makes it unpredictable, but the 90-mile-an-hour wind load assumes that there's extra capacity built in for dynamic loads like that. What happens, though, is it gets unpredictable, so obviously if you get enough ice on it, anything's going to fall down. Typically, you know, we hopefully won't get that around here. We have in the past. I said through the 90, I believe it was, Valentine's Day storm, and we know how that is. One thing I can say, though, is that if it does fall down, it will fall on the roof. It won't endanger anybody. That was one of the reasons why we put it where it is. So.
Well, my concern was primarily the old structure.
Right.
And the fact that the design loads back then were not the same as they are today.
Yeah, that was something that the engineer specifically addressed. Basically what this amounts to is about the same per square foot as somebody walking around on the roof itself presently, a human being walking around, in terms of the way it spreads the weight on there. Obviously, if you put a bunch of ice on it, this would be more, but the roof's in no danger of falling in from people walking around on it either. So in that sense, there is probably extra capacity. I assume that the engineers know what they're doing. Typically, this is an extreme case, and I don't think we'll see 90-mile-an-hour wind in an ice storm, we hope. If so, it won't be only our tire that's got a problem. Your tire will probably fall down too. So.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Roberts. Would the clerk please call the roll? This is ordinance number 2005-11-150, an ordinance approving a special use permit to allow the installation of a telecommunications antenna with tower in the B4 Central Business Zoning District, 202 South Broadway Avenue, plan case number 1961 SU-05.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we'll get back to the regular order of the agenda now. We're back to reports of officers.
Mayor, two items. First one is the Economic Development Report for October. I'm going to read this to you verbatim.
Good.
Just a couple of things to point out. You can look at this at your leisure, but I would like to point out on item number 3 downtown on the Gill Building, on your desk you'll find a letter from Tom Harrington, who explains to us that he's going to be revisiting the development agreement because he's not able to construct the building that they had initially planned for that site due to the location of various utilities and other easements. And he's going to, in his letter, which you have a copy of, he is requesting that we revisit the development agreement and allow the investment into the existing building and remodeling of the existing building. And in fact, he has a retail tenant ready for that building. Actually, they're going to buy the building, which is a uniform and medical supply facility. So I think the thing to do is we're looking at this, you look at this. If you have any concerns, give me a call. My guess is that we'll probably meet with Mr. Harrington and proceed with something along these lines. So take a look at it, tell me if you have any concerns, and we'll proceed. The second one, which is also on downtown projects and events, is The Omnicare Labs, if you look down about 6 points or so, it says Omnicare Labs. Omnicare Labs is going to be our new neighbor on the property that is at the corner of Illinois and Vine, which was Michelle's. We are working with them on a plan to invest $300,000 or $400,000 in a makeover of that building, and it appears as that we're going to enter into a development agreement with them for some TIF assistance on that project. We expect that to come to you in December, so that's one that, just to give you a heads up on as well, in addition to the Gill building that we're working on. Both of those could result, or if they go forward, will result in a development agreement or an amendment to a development agreement to have those two retail uses in place. As you know, the Walgreens opened on Halloween, and the retail commercial center, which is to the east of that facility, the walls and some of the brick veneers up that matches the Walgreens building. And I am pleased to announce that Mr. Tapman informed me that he's 50% leased up on that at this time, even though they're not completely out of the ground. There'll be a variety of restaurant and retail uses in that building, which is great. The more retail options we have for our citizens, the better off we are. So that's coming along just fine. I did want to point that one out. I think we had a discussion of the Pfeffer auction, or at least individually we've had discussions of the Pfeffer auction and what had happened with respect to that auction, and the fact that Menards had purchased the entire 288. More to come on that in the future. And then just only other thing maybe to point out, two other things to point out is the opening date for the Super Walmart is January 31st. And we still expect in Southeast Urbana demolition of the Kmart building any day for that to begin. So those are a few things to point out to you. Overall, we have continuing to have a lot of economic development activity, and that's great, and we're doing the best we can to stay on top of it. Second item I'd like to bring to your attention is that we did receive information from Illinois American Water locally, as well as some information on the internet you have in front of you, that RWE does intend to divest itself of its North American Water business. This, of course, would include Illinois American Water, and I cannot answer your questions on this at this point in time, although I did want to make sure that it was public that this was occurring. It's been my personal observation, nothing to do with this particular transaction, that every time there is a sale, the customer seems to receive less services. But anyway, that's a personal opinion. We will be following up with this in both the ICC, reviewing legally what our options are. We'll work jointly with the City of Champaign to determine what the impacts are on us locally and when and how this is going to take place. So there'll be more to come on that, but it appears that it has happened, or it's in the process of happening, and we'll have to deal with it. Those are the only two items I have, Mayor.
Mr. Roberts.
I just want to ask Bruce, the first, the Broadway address that you indicated
Yes.
with Rare Properties, is that the one that we vacated a short section of street that used to be the radio station? Or are we talking about the other building, which is the larger manufacturing building?
We're talking about the same building and the same stretch of right-of-way, although we actually didn't vacate it yet. We didn't really implement that agreement, so we'll need to do that.
So it's the smaller building that's in front next to the
Yes.
street that we're having problems with now, with the sewer replacement?
The original plan was that building is actually partially demolished. The interior is completely out of it. The walls, it's down to the studs in places.
Yeah.
Plumbing's gone, electrical's out of it. What the original plan was to demolish that building and to build a new building.
Office and retail.
Roughly in approximately where that building is, but expanded to the east.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, that can't happen. So what they're going back to is, well, how can we create a retail use on this property? The notion is to spend a considerable amount of money, expand and redo that retail building that's there. So that's the plan at this point. So we'll have to consider.
So it's a smaller sized building they're expecting to work on?
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Are there any?
The good news on that is it would not be speculative. They actually have a user, so.
Thank you. Are there any other reports of officers?
Oh, there's another question.
Charlie?
Yeah, just to go back to the water thing, this may be an opportunity, and I sent email around and about whether, a group of cities and counties or whatever could purchase what to me was, and I still think of as Northern Illinois Water Company. I'm trying to remember what their range was and whether that individual part of the company would become available.
I can't answer that. They do have facility in several Illinois cities, Pekin, Peoria. The Illinois territory, I think your question is, can the Illinois territory be bought by a consortium of cities? Possibly, but I don't know the answer to that. And of course, that gets into a lot of issues. The process, I think it was that Pekin went through, or was it Peoria? Each of them have had their own struggles, resulted in a price that their voters turned down. They just, on a referendum, they decided not to go forward because of the price. There was a third party that determined the fair market value of the income stream of the water utility, and they declined to proceed. So even if it was possible, there are other issues out there in terms of debt financing and all that. But I think it's an interesting notion to see if the other communities what they're doing about this.
Thank you.
And possibly the state legislature would be, I can't imagine that something like that could happen without some sort of legislative support.
Right. We're looking into that. Any other reports of officers?
Does everyone know Robert Myers? Our planning manager?
Yes, we do.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to read a proclamation by the mayors of the cities. Whereas the United States Marine Corps has protected citizens and guarded their freedom for the past 230 years, and whereas a Marine is trained to hold his ground against any odds and to be always faithful to God, country, and the Corps, standing ready to fight any time, any place that the President or Congress may designate. And whereas the term Marine has been associated with courage and military efficiency since the Corps was founded on November 10th, 1775, and whereas the people of Champaign and Urbana are proud of our rich contribution to the Marine tradition, and now therefore we, Gerald J. Schweihart, Mayor of the City of Champaign, and Laurel Lunt Pressing, Mayor of the City of Urbana, do hereby proclaim November 6th through 13th, 2005 as Marine Week in the cities of Champaign and Urbana, Illinois. And we have a compliment that has come in from our staff, Gordon Skinner and Steve Cochran were complimented by a local plumber, Mr. Fred Coble. He was very impressed by their professionalism and the way they handled a situation where many other inspectors would have lost their cool. So I think it's nice that we got compliments on that. And the clerk has alerted me to the fact that we failed to approve the minutes. That was my fault. All right, so is there a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
I would so move.
A motion by Mr. Roberts and seconded by Mr. Lewis, I believe. There's a lot of competition for these motions. Yeah. And is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, new business. I have two appointments to make. Urbana Free Library Board, William Golden, to fill the unexpired term of April Getchus, ending June 30th, 2007. And Urbana Plan Commission, Jane Burris, to fill the unexpired term of Randy Kangas, ending June 30th, 2007. Is there a motion to approve those appointments? A motion by Mr. Lewis and seconded by Ms. Chenoweth. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now, we're moving on to a very long list of community development items. Can these be sort of acted on in one motion? items A through, okay, we're talking about items A through N, is that correct? All right. Okay, this is Erin Bullock from Community Development.
CDBG and home agreements that are currently underway. The purpose for these amendments is to bring the language in those agreements in line with some federal regulations. Some deficiencies, minor deficiencies were pointed out by our auditor. Basically, we're tightening up language. It's a housekeeping issue. We had something sort of general, such as and all other local, state, and federal regulations that apply, and our auditor recommended that some specific regulations be cited, and in order to just abide with a little bit tighter compliance, the 14 amendments that you have before you were drafted. And there is one minor adjustment that I'd like to point out. Actually, it's known as a Scrivener error that Mr. Bowersox pointed out to us on the agreement, the neighborhood organization agreement for UCAN. There you have a revised one that was distributed at the beginning of the meeting. There was a typo, and within the agreement, another organization's name was in there. That's been corrected, so you have the corrected agreement in front of you. I can go on and on about this, but I'll just open it up to any specific questions about the regulations that you might have.
Ms. Chenoweth.
Is part of what we're voting on today monthly reporting requirements?
Yes. That is the one exception in all of these agreements. Of the 14 agreements, there is one, and that is for Ecological Construction Laboratory, known as Ecolab. That agreement was also brought into compliance with, as were the other 13, but since we were doing this amendment, we took this opportunity to add to the agreement a monthly reporting requirement versus a quarterly reporting requirement.
But that's not for everyone, that's just for
No,
Ecolab.
that's just for Ecolab, and it's the same reporting requirement. You may recall we looked at in August that was added to the homestead.
Are there any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve these?
I move items 2A through N, ordinance numbers 2005-11-153 through 2005-11-166 in an omnibus fashion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smythe, seconded by Mr. Bowersox. Any discussion? All those in favor? I guess we need a roll call on this omnibus motion, right?
Yes.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Motion carries.